Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. We made it to another week. My name is Tisha, and I am one of the hosts for Casual Convo Friday. Nate Flood, still out of town on business duties, but we have G. Raj back in the house. He is my special co host guest. Joining me today as we have Dan Dominguez. He's a Chief Growth Officer at the Y Institute, jumping into our hot seat today to answer some brilliant questions that G. Raj is about to ask. So if you have any questions as we're getting going, please use the chat box. We are here to say hello, to chime in and address those questions as well. But Dan, again, Chief Growth Officer at the Y Institute, a good friend of mine, actually G. Raj and Dan, both sponsoring my Startup Business Grant earlier this year. And today we're diving into the why, how, what statement. And I'm going to let G. Raj take that away. But if you do have any questions, feel free to comment. We will be addressing those in real time and is also in the replay. So Dan, so great to have you here joining us from New Mexico. Good to have you.
Great to be here, Tisha. I love that you got Gary on here. This is going to be great. I love, three contributes in a room. We're going to just get, what are we giving away today, Tish?
What are we giving away? We're giving away a brand new convertible.
There you go. We're gonna find something that we can give to people today. So let's do that.
Yeah. So sit tight. This is going to be a jam-packed value session. And I know Gary's got some great questions he's going to be asking Dan. And then again, jump into the conversation with us in Casual Convo Friday. Away we go. All right, Gary, first question.
Well, thank you, Tisha, and welcome, Dan. This is exciting to be a part of this. For a second week, I just have to throw a shout out to Nate Flood, who I'm subbing in for. Nate is a great guy and does a great job with Tisha. But what I love about Nate is he has amazing questions. And so I'm hoping I'm going to come up with some amazing questions for you, Dan. Now, again, it's taken me some time to come up with some stuff. Now, I had to hide away and really focus. I mean, this first one, this is not an easy one. No, I'm just kidding. But no, this is a real basic one, Dan. But it really has to do with, really about what your company is about. And I'll love you to explore what is a why?
Yeah, I love that. That's a great question. And actually, we've had a lot of conversations around that, Gary. So that's a slide in my presentation, and I spend time on it because your why, I like to think of it as your operating system. It's how you're wired. A lot of people think your why, the answer that we often get, and Tish and I were talking about someone she spoke with yesterday, women in the workforce often say, my why is my children, or my why is to make my business successful. That's what drives me. Well, those are things you want to accomplish, because if your why is your children, guess what? Your children leave when they turn 18. Or then when they turn 22, or nowadays they wait till they're 30, but eventually they leave. And guess what? Your why is gone. So your why is really more, in the way we look at it, it's how you're wired to operate. So we've discovered that there are 9 whys, and we work within those 9 whys. So if your why is like all of us in here, people that are listening are saying, what do you mean contributes, right? But our why is to contribute. Those 3 of us that are in this casual combo together. So that means that in everything we do, we look for ways to help people. We can't help ourselves. It's our basic wiring. It's our operating system. So when somebody's why is contribute, that's what they do. When somebody's why is to find a better way, guess what they do? First thing they do in the morning when they see something, they're always looking for a better way to do it. And so we can go through all the 9 whys, but what I like to tell people is think of your why as your operating system. It's how you're hardwired to react to things. It's how you're hardwired to do things. It's what you do, whether or not you want to. You can't help yourself. You want to contribute. The challenge that we have is saying no. I was just talking to someone on the call that I did this morning. I was doing a workshop with a group, and we were trying to determine whether they would contribute or another why. And I said, how does it feel to you when someone asks for help and you have to tell them no? It hurts, right? It's hard to say no. We we put off saying no, right? Well, let me get back to you, because we don't want to say no, because it's in our nature to help. So we have to find creative ways to say no and nice ways to say no when you're a contributor, and that comes with every one of the whys.
Mm-hmm.
So Dan, like, so that's interesting. Okay, we're all contributors. What do you think about, like, are people born with their why, or do you think they go through experiences that help them push them to a certain why? What are your thoughts about that? Like, how we develop our why? Why, like, was I just born to give away? Was Tisha just born to give away that Camry? That
Yeah.
Camry she always does a video in at the end of the show. Like, why is it that Tisha wants to give away that Camry?
So
I love this question. This is a great, brilliant question, Gary.
No, I love this question, and we get it all the time, especially when I get a group of people together like we had this morning. And the question is always, well, are we born with our why, or is it developed? And you know what answer I love giving? It's yes. The answer is yes. I think there are experiences in our lives that form our why, but I think some of it is hardwired, genetic. I think, if you come from a very generous family that's always contributing, probably you have a gene in you that says, I like to help people, but you can also develop it. I know for me, I look back, and I always talk to people about discovering my why. My life made sense, because I went back in my life and I said, yeah, I am always looking to help people, even to the detriment of myself sometimes. And I look back at, I grew up in a poor neighborhood, in a poor area of town, where not a lot of kids went to college, but I had such fantastic teachers that were such great mentors and took time to spend extra time with me to make sure that I knew that there was a different path that I could take. And then there were people in the business community that donated scholarships and that were part of my growing up and took the time. I had amazing coaches. So I think when you're exposed to that throughout your life, and that people gave to you, I think something in me said, you know what, when I'm in that position that I can give back, I'm going to. So I think part of it was innate. My dad's a very giving person, so I think I maybe inherited that. But then I think those experiences early in my life made me more of a contributor. So I think we could probably do that with all of the 9 whys. What's your how, Gary? I forgot.
My how, Tisha, I feel like I'm on the same page with Tisha. Tisha, what
challenge?
Yes. So mine is better way, and I know that. Mine is better way. It's contributor, better way, and then trust.
Yeah,
are the 3 things for me.
Yeah.
Perfect. So let's look at better way, right? Is it innate or is it built? I think probably if we talk to your mom, which she might come in the camera in a little while, we'll ask her. Someone that was always looking for a better way to do things. And then if you look back on your experience, you're like, yeah, I probably was. And then you may have found through life that when you found better ways to do things, you felt successful, right? And people liked it. Hey, they recognized Tisha. Hey, Tisha found a better way to do X. And so you got recognition. And so maybe that built in. So again, the answer, so is it born? Are you born with your why, or is it based on your experience? The answer is yes. I think it's both. And I think it's dependent on the individual. But the why is pretty hardwired. When somebody is a better way, they can't help themselves. So your how is better way, Tisha, but I can tell you, Gary cannot help himself. That is his what? Not Gary Rogers, Gary Sanchez. He cannot, if he sees a better way to do it, he's going to tell you he wants to share it with the world. And when he looks back on his life, he's always done it. And so that, we run into the challenges of that why, and that is that sometimes people don't want to know your better way. They're fine if you leave them alone, right? But when your why is to find a better way and share it, you share it. As soon as you figure it out, you go to those people and say, hey, I know this is successful for you and you got a great business. Here's a better way you could do it. And it's great when people are looking for that. And when they're not, then you're asked away nicely, right? But I think when you're developed in your why, you learn to help people with it rather than come across as you're meddling.
Yeah. So, Dan, it's interesting. Well, thank you for that. It makes sense. Some of us, we are born, or a lot of us were born with certain things. And then, sometimes those experiences continue to push us along that same path and maybe even another path. But yeah, yes to both those answers are perfect. Because, you know what? You mentioned three things. You talked about why, and then you're talking about how, and then you went back to what. And it's interesting that what. I was just thinking about this because I did these shirts a long time ago for this team that won the state championship in lacrosse. And these shirts, and I got up on stage and I was speaking, and I got up there as a white T-shirt, and it said "what" across the chest, and people are like, "What is going on?" Right? And of course, on the back of it said "state champs" and all that, and all the kids got them. But that brings me down to this. You talk about the why, then you brought in how, and then what. But those three, why, what, how, what order do you put those in? Yeah. What do they all mean? Can you start with why, obviously, and then what's next, and then what's after that?
Absolutely. So no, that's a great question, Gary. And it's great that you brought up the order, because the order is important, right? All of us who saw Simon Sinek's video 10 years ago, where he talked about starting with why and the importance of that. He said, look, inspired companies start with why. They tell us why they do. Apple doesn't tell us what they build. Apple doesn't start with, hey, we build great computers, we build a great MP3 players, and we build great phones. You know what? Their campaign, their most successful campaign ever said, think different, right? And so their whole purpose was to attract people that by the way, Steve Jobs' why is to challenge the status quo. Therefore, Apple's why is to challenge the status quo. Therefore, think different. So they lead with that. When you lead with your why, you attract people that believe what you believe. And who are the people that own Apple products? In the beginning, it was those that were, okay, we're not following the status quo. We're not following Windows. We're not doing IBM. We're not doing the big blue. We're Apple people, and we're going to do things differently. Then you tell people how you do that. So your how is how you bring your why to life. So, for example, Tisha shared hers. Her why is to contribute. How she does that is by finding better ways to do things. She contributes to the success of others by finding better ways. That's her how. And if she looks back in her life, as we did when we explored her why, how, what, finding those better ways is how she contributed to the success of others, or to her business, or to her classmates, or to her teammates. When she played sports, she found better ways to do things, and that contributed to the success of the team. Now, your what, as you talked about, the what you want to put across your shirt, it's the third why that you most identify with. So there are 9 whys. So there's contribute, trust, right, better way, simplify, clarify, mastery. So there's 9 whys that we're going to go through. The top 3 are your why, your how, and your what. And the what is what you do. So for Tisha, she's a coach, right? She's a speaker. Gary, you're a philanthropist extraordinaire. You run a successful website. You connect people. That's what you do. Why you do it is because you want to help people. So what you do is what you do. For me, I'm the Chief Growth Officer at the Y Institute. But what I bring is trust. So what you can count on me for, what we say about the what, it's what people can count on you for. So if your why is to contribute, your how is to challenge the status quo, and your what is trust. Trust is the one thing that you're known for, I think, or that you want to be known for. For me, I think trust is so important. I've been in sales my entire career. And I think that if you're somebody that's in sales and people trust you, and you can build long-term relationships based on trust, sky's the limit in terms as to what you can accomplish in sales, because you're going to have long-term clients that never leave you. And you don't have to worry about at the end of the contract, are they going to sign the renewal, because they trust you. They say, you know what? I'm doing business with Dan and his company because I just trust him. Every time we work together, he contributes to the success of my company. He challenges us by looking at things in different ways, but ultimately he builds trust by what he does. And all of us have a why, a how, and a what that we can kind of build our brand around. And I know Tisha has done it. I know you and I have done a little bit of work on that, Gary. And I know, that everybody we work with, we want to make sure they understand what their why is, what their how is, and what their what is, so they can tell people what it is. You can do it really simple. The really simple one for Tisha is, you know what, Tisha, you like to help people by finding better ways and building trust. That's it. Or you can flower it up and add a lot more from the scripts that we give you in terms of what the characteristics of your why are, and that can get really, really good. And that's what Trisha does, brand building.
I think too.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that I know when I've shared my why, how, what statement, people can already pinpoint like what I love to do for others. They can. They're like, oh, you must be a mentor. You must be some sort of a coach. If you're helping people find better ways to move forward faster, and then you're building trust and long-term relationships. And that's important to me. It's like you're saying, Dan, the what, you're doing it. Why are you doing those things? And for me, I am very big into building loyalty and trust in those relationships and continuing to see those relationships flourish. And these people take it to the next level. That's exactly it. So it's about building trust. I am not looking for every person to be my client. I'm looking for the right people that I want to then help and grow in a relationship with them.
Exactly.
That's all true, Tisha. I mean, I've seen you, I've gotten to know you, and you're a great lady, and you really do care. You do give back. You care about people. You answer all people. There's no one that you're too good to talk to, answer, help. I mean, it is great. I mean, it's funny. It's interesting because, we can all talk a good game, but it's the walking the game, walking or talk is what's most important, right? So Dan, with that, okay, so why, how, why is one, how is the second piece, and then what is the third piece?
Right.
So if somebody understands this why, how, and what, how can that help them individually, knowing those things, and even like with the decisions that they make day to day, as well as how can that help their company if they're working for a company? So I don't know if, maybe not all people are even in business as well. So maybe this could also serve as, maybe a mother, father, working at home, working around the kids. It's probably just as important for them to know this and know how their decisions are affected. But could you explain some of that?
Yeah, I love that. That's another great question. So I was recently working with your grant winner, Tisha.
Oh yeah, Sharon Deep.
And so we did her why, how, and what. And as we talked through it, there's three places. So you talked about how can you use it personally, how can you use it in your business, and how can you use it if you're not a business owner, if you're working for a company, right? So let me tell you how you use it personally. I think for me, what it does is it's a great filter for what I'm going to be involved in, right? So let's talk about, I'll give you the example of Gary. So we're not talking, because we all have such similar whys. I want to mix it up a little. Gary's why is to find a better way. His how is to clarify, and his what is to simplify. Let me tell you what I mean by using it as a filter. What Gary does with everything we bring to him, the first thing he says is it better? Is it simple? Is it clear? And is it simple? If you're bringing something to me, it better be better, it better be clear, and it better be simple. If it fits those three criteria, then I'm all in. He's leaning in and saying, hey, how can we get involved? If I bring something to him, so it's perfect because we work together. If I say to him, hey, Gary, here's an idea. It's not necessarily better. It's kind of about the same. It's going to give us the same results as we're currently getting. I'm not real clear on what the plan is, and it's actually a little bit complicated. He's going to say, no, I don't want any part of it, right? Because it's not better, it's not clear, and it's not simple. For you, Gary, if it doesn't help people, if it doesn't challenge the status quo, and it doesn't build trust, you probably want nothing to do with it. Am I right?
Yeah, that sounds good. And by the way, Dan, when you're talking about Gary, there's two Garys. There's lots of Garys, but you're talking about Dennis Gary. You're talking about Dennis Gary, and it's important for him to have this clear and better. Make sure the tooth that we're going to pull is the one on the left side. Right. You can't be like, hey, we're wait, which tooth is it? No,
Any
it
tooth
makes
will
sense.
do. Any
It
tooth.
makes sense.
No, you're absolutely better, clear, simple is exactly, and it fits him so well. And so, as an executive team, we work together that way too. So he knows. So here's what's really cool about knowing the why, how, what's of your team. I know that he's a better way. So I know that anything I bring to him, he's going to want to improve on. So early on in our relationship, I would bring him stuff that I'd worked really hard on. And then he'd say, "Oh, Dan, that's really good, but here's how you can do it better." And my feelings would get hurt because he couldn't help himself but make it better. So what I've learned is I take him drafts now. I take him stuff when it's 90% done, and then he better weighs it, and then we finish it together, and then my feelings don't get hurt because I've already made it better for him. And the same way for him, he knows that my how is to challenge. So I'm full of ideas, crazy ideas, and they're not always better. What's great about the synergy that we have is I bring them to him and he picks the better ones. He says, you got 10 ideas. 7 of them are nuts, but 3 of them are better than what we're already doing. So we're going to implement those 3. So so again, it's using the strengths of your team, right? We're better together by me giving, and I feel great because I get to download all my crazy ideas and I know that he's going to pick the best ones because he can't help himself. And those are the ones that we'll implement. So personally and professionally, you can see how you can help that. And then I think if you work at a company, I think knowing your why, how, what. Let's say that I gave up this gig and I wanted to go back to corporate. And I've had those opportunities and I've had those conversations. And I'm very clear now, if you want me to come work for you, here's what has to happen. You have to put me in a position where I'm helping others. You have to make sure in that position, I'm going to have freedom to challenge the status quo and do things my own way. And if I can't do that, and ultimately, I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing builds trust. So I can tell you that I had a very close call with a company once that wanted to hire a new VP of sales. And, it was a great interview process. Something didn't feel right. And then I decided, you know what, that's not for me. I'm not going to do it. The very next week, the very next month, the person that was hired in the position that I was in had to lay off a bunch of people. So that would not have fit me because I would have come in as the brand new guy to lay off a bunch of people. That was, there was something that didn't feel right. And I'm glad that, that we didn't move forward. And then hearing what happened, that would not contribute to the help of others. Definitely wasn't going to build trust. So it wasn't a fit. And I think you can use it as a filter. So when you know your why, how, and what, you can be really confident in that interview process of what it is that you bring. And then those people can say, yeah, we want that, or no, we don't. And that's okay too, because it's a filter for positive, and it's also a filter, as Tisha said. What you do is, as Simon taught us, if you tell people what you believe, you attract people that believe what you believe. So Tisha, if people are saying to you, you know what, I can tell you're a coach. You're always looking to help by finding better ways and building trust. Well, guess what? If somebody who wants to be your client doesn't resonate with those 3 things, they're not going to come to you.
Right.
You know what? Right. That's not for me anyway. And that's okay too, because they probably wouldn't have been great clients for you.
This is so much about the law of attraction too. When you say that, like, I'm going to put out what I believe, and the people that also believe in the things that I do, the people that have the same values, those core values, that's what's really going to be getting them attracted to what it is I do. So I like what you're saying here. You've even mentioned in some conversations we've had that students should be utilizing these why, how, what. Like I said, it's not just for corporate, it's not just for entrepreneurs, but if you're standing out, knowing exactly who you are and leading with that,
right,
you stand out among everybody else that's trying to go after that same job or that same college or whatever it is. So I really like that you can utilize it throughout your whole entire life. It's not just, I work for corporate and this is what I use it for.
Gary tells a story, and we've seen this, Tisha, a young man that was a patient of Gary's who went into law enforcement. and right out of college. And there's nothing wrong with a career in law enforcement if that's what you want to do. But he just did it because he was a criminal justice major, so he went into law enforcement. And then you know what happens to us, right? We're in our 20s, we get that first job, and then you meet someone, then you get married, then you buy a house, and then you have kids. Well, now you've got responsibilities, and you've got a mortgage, and you've got a job that pays you really well. And he realized that every day he wasn't doing what he loved doing, right? If you know in the beginning what your why was, so whether it's contribute, better way, you can be a police officer with any of the 9 whys, but you have to make sure that you can bring your why to life in that role. My brother is a contributor. He's in law enforcement, and he's a person who wants to help people. So for him, what attracts him about law enforcement is the ability to help people. He's there when people need him, right? And so he's living his why. Could you live your why if your why is to challenge the status quo in law enforcement? Sure. You just have to make sure that you're in a police department that where your chief is going to let you do things differently, right? You're going to be the cop that goes to like I was telling the story when I was in the military, right? Everybody thinks if you're in the military, you got to follow lockstep and do everything the right way. Well, there's guardrails. And what I learned to do is, okay, these are the guardrails, but I can play in here quite a bit. So let me have some fun with that. Big thing in the military is you don't fraternize with your troops, right? Well, guess what I would do? I would have them over to my house for parties and have a barbecue because that's how I got to know them, right?
Yeah.
It kind of looked down upon, but now it's allowed. I always challenge the status quo, and I kept it within the law. That wasn't something you were going to get court-martialed for. You just have your troops over at your house, and some people didn't feel comfortable with that, and that's okay. That's what challenge people do. We make people a little bit uncomfortable. But what I found is that it built our team. Our team knew each other better. They knew, hey, they've been to the lieutenant's house and they met his wife, they met his daughter, and all of a sudden we're a family versus just being, yes, sir, no, sir, go do what I asked you to do, right?
Right.
So you have to be, whatever it is that you do, you use this as your filter to make sure that you're doing what you love. You're following your operating system.
That's some good advice. Hey, Gary, any other questions you have for Dan?
I was just a quick comment. You're talking about team. It really sounds like the whole synergy effect. When they talk about 2 horses, if one horse can pull 1,000 pounds and another horse can pull 1,000 pounds, but when they work together, they don't pull just 2,000 pounds. They can pull 3,000 pounds. Right. But now that's synergy. Now, what I think is when you're talking team, when you're talking about you're getting to know your other people's why, how, what, I believe there's not only synergy, but those 2 horses, they're not pulling 3,000. I think that they would be able to pull 4,000 or 5,000 because there's more efficiency. How Dr. Gary knows how he works. And so instead of giving him blah, blah, blah and wasting time, what he wants and you're being efficient. And so wouldn't that be really beneficial for a company? The team could pull so much more weight than they've ever pulled before because of them knowing their why, how, and what, and knowing other people's why, how, what. So anyway, that was just my thought when you were sharing.
That is perfect, Gary. That's exactly what we tell people. I think knowing the why, how, what of all the members of your team helps you. And it's exactly what you said. It drives efficiency. Don't put Dan to do accounting. He's not going to do great at accounting.
Me neither.
Start to follow through. Let's put people that want to do that stuff in that. Let's put people in the right seats on the bus so that the bus can run efficiently. Don't put the guy that doesn't know how to drive in the driver's seat. Right? Let's make sure we put the talent where it belongs. And like you said, also talk to people the way they want to be talked to. I know not to bring anything to Gary that's not better, clear, or simple. I can bring it to him. And then sometimes, so here's the other part. Sometimes I do need to bring something that's not, but I can prepare him. I say, look, this is going to ramble on a little bit. This isn't better, clear, and simple, but I need to share it with you for whatever reason. And so he can be prepared to receive that information. And then we can make a decision. So not everything has to be that way, but we can prepare ourselves for it. So it doesn't mean you can't do things differently. It just means it's a good filter.
I think that's so important when you're working within a team environment to pull people aside and give them the floor. So you listen to what is it that you really enjoy doing? Like you said, we're not going to put Dan in an accounting role if it's not really what he wants to do. But where do you thrive, Dan? Where can we utilize your greatest skill set to help our organization? And so many teams, so many companies are not tapping into that potential. They're placing you where they think, and it's like, well, we're not making you rock star here. Like, we're just putting you in a position that you don't want to be in. So this is so key. It's so key to listen to your employees, figure out what their why, how, what is, and then place them accordingly, because they will thrive in those situations where you put them.
Absolutely. And I think it makes it easier to communicate. So I know there are lots of different programs out there that tell us how to communicate with each other, but we call it the platinum rule. You know, if you're talking to a contributor, talk to that contributor about how what you're going to do helps people. If you're talking to a person who's a better way, talk to them about how what you're doing is better. If you're talking to someone who's a simplifier, keep it simple. Hey, here's 3 things we got to do. And guess what? People are open to it because you're talking to them in a language they understand. It makes them lean in. So I think that's the beauty of it. So it improves communication too.
Good. Well, I know we are wrapping up with time here. We're a little bit over. So, Dan, I want to give you the floor. I know that you are always looking for coaches that want to help spread the word with the why, how, what statements. So do you want to share, who are you looking for? How can we help you? How can we send people your way?
Absolutely, Tisha. Look, our ideal clients are coaches who right now are looking for a way to help their clients discover their why, discover their operating system. What we have found is coaches that use the why discovery and the why, how, what in their practice get through that work so much faster, and they can then get to the coaching they do best. You know, we tell people the why is not what you do. The why is how you get to what you do faster, more efficiently. So they can get in touch with us at whyinstitute.com. They'll find my email right in there. I'd love to talk to them, but that is who we're looking for. We want people who want to help us spread the gospel of the why.
That's awesome. Gary, do you have any other comments, suggestions, questions before we wrap it up?
No, I was just going to say, hopefully Nate Flood feels good about the questions I asked you, Dan and Tisha. Hopefully in case you're watching, Nate, hopefully I did a good job. But Dan, it's great talking to you and learning some more. And Tisha, it's always great to be with you. I love this week too. And Nate, if you're off next week, hey, I'm around.
I know I have to check in with Nate, see where he's at as well. But thank you, Gary, for sitting in and being my special co-host. And Dan, always a pleasure. I love it when you're on with us and you can share why this is so important to have your why. And if you are watching this replay or if you are watching it live and you have questions, definitely reach out to any of us, especially Dan, because he can point you in the right direction in figuring out what your why, how, what statement is. All right. Thanks, guys. Happy Halloween to all of you, and be safe out there. And to everyone, have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Tisha, Gary, it's been a pleasure. Always great to be on with you. Have a great weekend.
Yep. You too. Bye, guys.
Yep.
All right.